Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, I'm going to be showcasing a team that had some very fun sets with today in the Open Great League, built around double legacy Shadow Machamp. Now previously, I've had some reservations about Shadow Machamp. The fact that his moveset is completely walled by Clodsire, which is the #1 ranked Pokemon in the meta, gave me pause. However, after seeing it used to tremendous success in the Baltimore Regionals, I tried it out myself, and oh my goodness, the pacing on this thing is absolutely unbelievable. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and let's take a look at Shadow Machamp in action in the Open Great League. Hopping into the first match, picking up a terrible lead, Shadow Machamp into Azumarill. This is the core breaker for the team. I'm running a team that is triple weak to Azumarill. I save switch into Shadow Drapion, and my opponent responds with a Powder Snow Alolan Sandslash. I have a big energy head start here with the Drapion, and as well, I have a pacing advantage. So shielding this drill run means that I'm going to be able to get both shields from my opponent or switch advantage, because Drapion wins charge attack priority over the Alolan Sandslash. So I get not one, but to put pressure on both of their shields, and now I have Shadow Machamp where I want it, which is in the 1-0 shield scenario. I live, so I send in Machamp. Opponent is going to bring back out Azumarill, but I have an energy lead and a shield advantage. Let's watch Shadow Machamp go to work. Stone Edge #1 is going to connect. That is neutral damage. This thing's damage output is absolutely absurd. They're going to go for the Ice Beam. I'm going to farm up and very easily pick up a knockout with the Stone Edge. They still have 1 health remaining on their Alolan Sandslash. In comes Chestnut, and Chestnut is going to take massive damage from Cross Chop. Cross Chop is going to connect. I have to watch for a potential catch from the opponent. There's the catch attempt, and the opponent is going to get 1v3'd by a Machamp in the endgame as it KOs the Sandslash, KOs the Chestnut, and KOs Azumarill as well. We move to the next match, and no, there's another Azumarill. I ran this team because I didn't think there would be a lot of Azumarills, and here it is back-to-back games. With a Crunch debuff, Shadow Drapion can win the zeros here with the energy lead that I have. Crunch does get the debuff. I live this drill run, and I can make a second Crunch, which will KO. Opponent makes a play that, after watching it back, I'm still confused as to why they rock slided there. My best guess is they were so confident I was going to shield that they threw the wrong move, but they end up throwing a rock slide for no reason. It's not like rock slide is even cheaper there, and these sets are above veteran elo, so this is within 50 points of leaderboard, so this player knows what they're doing. So I do not know why they threw rock slide there, but we take it. We take it. They have an Alolan Marowak in the back, and this game is just over because I can absorb all this energy on Diggersby, and Shadow Machamp up a shield is about to absolutely shred this opponent, and I cannot wait. Diggersby goes for the Scorching Sands. They give me the final shield. This game is over. This game is over. I'm not shielding this Diggersby. 2-shield Shadow Machamp. If your opponent doesn't have fast move pressure into a 2-shield Shadow Machamp, they're going to have a truly terrible day. Shadow Machamp, it's really, really glassy. Even Bubble looks like it's super effective here, but the energy generation is just absurd. I can fire Stone Edge after Stone Edge in this matchup. I could go for Charge Attack Priority Tie here, but my thinking is that Bubble is actually going to do more damage than a Fire Spin. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take as much Bubble damage as I can, because this way I am going to be overall healthier than if I was taking Fire Spins. Stone Edge KOs, in comes Marowak, and Shadow Machamp just putting on a masterclass. Stone Edge KOs the Alolan Marowak, and that is a good game. We've got good news as there's finally a good lead in the next match, Shadow Machamp versus Dugong. Dugong, I believe, can actually live a cross chop from here, so I'm going to go for the Stone Edge. I'm going to try and punish a no-shield. The opponent does end up shielding. They're going to fire off the Icy Wind. I will commit the shield, and then just look to farm up and pick up a knockout with a Cross Chop. As at this point, I've Karate Chopped them into a range where a Cross Chop should be lethal. So I'm going to fire off the Cross Chop. Cross Chop is enough to pick up the knockout, and down goes Dugong. The fact that they stayed in with Dugong, they must be weak in the back, and they are. In comes Galar Moltres. I could go for 1 Stone Edge here, but my thinking here is if they shield, then throwing 2 Cross Chops is going to be the right play. It turns out they actually end up calling the first, which is a pretty nice understanding by them of the endgame situation. I can bring in the Shadow Drapion, and I'm going to shield the Brave Bird and look for the farm down. As now I have a full health Drapion and a full health Diggersby, and the back opponent has Low Kicks. Low Kicks, a very, very cool pick. And Low Kicks It does have Trailblaze. That could make things a little bit awkward for my Diggersby. My Diggersby is pretty XL though, so I should be able to tank 2 Trailblazes, but boosted damage is going to get uncomfortable. There, I try for a catch. Catching an X-Scissor, I would have instantly won, but I failed the catch, and now I'm going to get hit with Trailblaze after Trailblaze. Can Diggersby hang on here? This is going to be close. Trailblaze, Diggersby withstands the damage. Let's go, Diggersby. Able to withstand the boosted Trailblaze, pick up the knockout. Galar Moltres doesn't have nearly enough energy to make a move, so I get the farm down and take the win. Tough lead in the next match, Machamp and a Malamar. I could stay in and outpace and make it to a cross chop, but instead, I'm going to bring in the Drapion. They're going to go for a superpower and dip, and I want to get damage before they can do that. So I actually throw the non-stab move Aqua Tail just to put it closer into cross chop range for later in the match. They land the superpower. In comes a Carbink. Carbink, a Pokemon that I can pretty comfortably destroy with Diggersby. I should be able to get a second Aqua Tail here. Oh no, I don't get there. Oh, that is really unfortunate. A second Aqua Tail landing would have been very, very clutch for me, because then I could have overfarmed massively with the Diggersby and knocked out with 1 Scorching Sands, whereas now I need 2. And that means that I actually don't get to leave with a lot of residual energy. So far, they have Malamar and they have Carbink. This is going to come down to what their third is. Malamar, of course, has taken some damage, which does make it a lot easier for Machamp to get rid of, as it's basically in cross chop plus farm down range. In the back, it's Azumarill again. You have got to be kidding me. That is so unfortunate. I'm going to fire off the Scorching Sands. That's going to connect. Aggressive switch to the Machamp. Opponent throwing instantly here. This is only an Ice Beam, but I have to shield. If I let it go, I'm just getting Psywave down. In comes the Malamar. I have an energy advantage. Let's start spamming out these cross chops. Opponent lets it go, and that's a big misplay. They could have double shielded the Malamar and gotten super effective Psywaves, but instead they're trusting in 2-shield Azumarill, and Machamp knows how to take care of Azumarill. Build up to the Stone Edge, get the bait, build up to the Stone Edge, baiting again. Let's see, can we get both shields with baits? Yes, we can. I switch into Diggersby. Opponent cannot bubble me down before I can make it to a Scorching Sands. They're forced to throw energy. And now, throughout the course of this battle, I have successfully gotten them into Stone Edge range. So the team that is triple weak to Azumarill has now beaten 3 Azumarills, and we are on a bit of a roll. There was no pun intended, as in the next match, I lead Machamp into the rollout user Dunsparce. Opponent safe switches into a Venusaur, and I'm very lucky to see that Venusaur here. Venusaur against the Diggersby or the Machamp would be very difficult to deal with, but Drapion can very comfortably handle it. Drapion does have a pacing advantage, even though I'm down energy, and since I'm down energy, I actually have to Aqua Tail here. Aqua Tail will be enough to knock out, of course. It's resisted, but they're very, very low. Opponent shields. They really want switch advantage. I really don't want to give them switch. However, what I also don't want to surrender is a huge farm to the Dunsparce. So I'm going to let myself get as low as possible, and then I decide I'm going to bank an Aqua Tail and aggressively pivot into the Diggersby. Both Diggersby and Machamp beat Dunsparce, but Diggersby can take a hit. I'm very comfortable no shielding here. And suddenly the game freezes. No, do not lag me out. I tab out. I tab back in. Opponent, looks like, I think they lagged out here. But the game froze for me too. So I was very worried, but it looks like that I was able to tab out of the app and tab back in, and the game unfroze for me, thank goodness, and I'm able to get my win after all. We move to the next match, and this is Shadow Machamp's worst nightmare. Shadow Machamp aligned onto Clodsire is so helpless. I safe switch into the Shadow Drapion, fire off the Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail is going to land. Opponent banks the energy, brings in Greninja, and this is really not looking great for me. I fire off the Crunch. Crunch is going to land. And Hydro Cannon does so much that I think it honestly might knock out. So I will expend a shield and then fire off an Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail will be able to pick up a KO. I wouldn't be surprised if they shield it back. They actually let it go. Opponent gives me switch advantage. In comes the Clodsire, and they do a perfect over farm. They were very aware of my energy there, making sure that I do not get another Aqua Tail. I bring in Diggersby. In the back is a Primeape, and I instantly lose the game. Whether I played for switch or not, unfortunately, this is just a hard counter loss, as Primeape will have identical pacing as Machamp, but even if I switch instantly, I'm always going to be behind a turn, which is going to mean that I get absolutely destroyed in the mirror. So, unfortunately for me, there's not really anything I can do at this moment. I'm going to try and play it out, but realistically, there's no way to win the game. Here, I thought for a second there was hope, because I have a move. Shadow Machamp is a really high attack stat, But it turns out Primeape's attack stat is even higher. So Primeape knocks me out with a cross chop. I get to the Fire Punch, but Primeape is winning CMP over everything. So fair play to my opponent. Pretty spicy team there with the Primeape, and they're able to take the win. Hopping into the next match, leading Shadow Machamp into Talonflame. Tricky matchup here, as of course Machamp can one-shot with the Stone Edge, but with shields up, that Incinerate damage is just devastating. I'm going to farm up to the Stone Edge and bait with the Cross Chop. Opponent calls the bait. That's really bad. I'm going to bring in Drapion. At the very least, I can survive a fly here from the Talonflame, but disaster strikes. It's the Brave Bird. I get one hit KO'd. In comes Diggersby, and the opponent is going to pivot out, saving that Talonflame for later and bringing in the Shadow Drapion. I'm in trouble. If I can get back in this game, it's going to be with baiting. I bait with the Fire Punch. I get the shield, but my goodness, what a call by my opponent in that first matchup. And then to full send the Brave Bird, I'm in trouble here. I'm going to bring in the Machamp. I get the Stone Edge. Look at this. This is a neutral move, but it just KOs. They get knocked out. In comes Talonflame. I make the Cross Chop. Machamp's pacing is absolutely beautiful. Cross Chop is no shielded. In the back is Ferrothorn. That no shield by my opponent, I think, just won them the game. This is going to be really close, but the pacing is just not in my favor here. I can land the Fire Punch. Scorching Sands, I believe, does do slightly more, but neither would allow me to farm down. I'm going to need 3 moves. And I can get close, but not close enough. I'm very close to the back-to-back, but my opponent has the Power Whip here. They can click it, and XL Diggersby is very bulky, but not bulky enough to take that hit, and I will lose the game. We move to the next match, Shadow Machamp versus Talonflame. Maybe it's the same team as last time, a potential chance at redemption. Honestly, I really don't think that my opponent is going to call a bait twice, so I'm going to go for a Cross Chop bait, and I do get the shield. Opponent throws instantly. This makes me think they are on Flame Charge. Flame Charge is going to start to ramp up their attacks. I bring in the Drapion, and Drapion is going to outpace and make it to an Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail is going to land. That does not KO. Opponent sends out their Quillfish. So a very similar idea to the previous team. My guess is just Quillfish instead of Drapion. Look at that damage though. That Aqua Tail hits so hard. Quillfish, my goodness. I was not familiar with how much damage this thing could do. I'm going to bring in the Diggersby, absorb an Aqua Tail, and hopefully get the quick attack down before they can make another move. It's going to be very close. I do get that farm down. That's absolutely massive. That is very, very good for me. Opponent, they still have the low health Talonflame. Talonflame does have energy. They have a Metal Claw Ferrothorn in the back. Metal Claw did get a buff, but typically you are going to see that the regular Bullet Seed version is going to be preferred. They switch into the Talonflame, but I can just shield, counter down Shadow Machamp, you absolute beast. And normally I'd throw one in the move there if it's a 3-turn, but it's a 2-turn. So I can just throw instantly. Opponent knows I have the back-to-back moves, and they will let that through. We pick up a great lead in the next match. Shadow Machamp versus Galarian Moltres. Opponent save switches. No! Into the Azumarill. Oh, this is really, really unfortunate. Azumarill, again, I just have nothing for. Shadow Drapion without Sludge Bomb does not beat Azumarill. Azumarill is going to get debuffed with the Crunch, but even so, that's not going to allow my next Crunch to knock out. This is an XL Azumarill. It's very, very bulky. I fire off the Crunch. It does not KO. Opponent throws... I think this is only an Ice Beam. And if it's an Ice Beam, I can actually live that. They aggressively switch into the Moltres. I fire off the Aqua Tail because I'm just looking to try and get some kind of damage. I don't want to switch lock the Machamp, so I let myself get farmed down. In hindsight, maybe I should have switch locked the Machamp. Here I was worried a Cross Chop wouldn't KO, so I go for the Stone Edge. They end up shielding. In hindsight, I think a Cross Chop may have done it. Shadow Machamp's attack stat is insane. I end up shielding, but since I had to move as expensive as Stone Edge gets shielded, now I'm actually in a spot where I can potentially get KO'd. So they shield. I'm thinking they've got to be pretty weak, so I switch out into the Diggersby, and I'm saving my Machamp for later. But this means that I now get hit with a Brave Bird. Opponent's final Pokemon is Diggersby, so they were weak to that Machamp. If I had just not given the farm, if I had just aggressively brought back in the Machamp, then I could have actually been in a decent position to win this game. But unfortunately, I threw a Stone Edge when I probably didn't have to. I gave them an energy lead, and now I just lose. Because Shadow Machamp beats Diggersby, but my opponent is overfarmed to a Scorching Sands plus a Fire Punch. and I'm close to a move, but they know that I do not have it. So I misplay despite the favorable team comp. My opponent is able to punish that misplay, and I lose the game. Hopping into the final match, leading Shadow Machamp into Diggersby, opponent's safe switches into the Feraligatr, and I get to overfarm, fire off the cross chop, and force the shield. I could have also just switched in the Diggersby instantly, and maybe that is the slightly better play. However, I do like trying to get shields down early and often, and firing off that cross chop usually does a very good job at it, because my goodness, people do not want to take hits from the Shadow Machamp. I look to overfarm, I throw 4 in the move, so this way I'm throwing right before they get to the Hydro. Opponent, this could actually get tricky here. It looks like my opponent is looking to get shields down. They could make a similar play to what my opponent was doing previously, which is, I was going to say, let the Feraligatr go down and just get a bunch of energy on their Diggersby, but instead they switch lock their Diggersby. I don't agree with that play pattern from the opponent. I'm going to farm up, go for charge attack priority here, cross chop to Scorching Sands. Look at this, it KOs. Oh my goodness, Shadow Machamp's damage output is absurd. And they should be, I believe, 1 off on Feraligatr. So Feraligatr doesn't get its move either. That's where counting can be very, very helpful. So I pick up the KO. In comes the Shadow Drapion. I would have loved to Stone Edge and just KO'd them, but unfortunately I was worried about an Aqua Tail. So I just go for the cross chop, and look at that damage. Oh my goodness. This Pokemon, it's a very difficult Pokemon to use because it's very frail, but it is so much fun. This damage output is ridiculous. And here the opponent realizes there is no longer a win con, and they will resign the match. All in all, I had a ton of fun getting to run Shadow Machamp. I did have some up and down sets, but overall I ended positive with the team. I was able to end on a big 5-0, which is always a great way to end things. The team did have a little bit of learning pains, I would say, just due to the fact that Shadow Machamp and Drapion both really like shields. So there were some games where I felt like the team wanted more shields than I had. So for the future, I did like the Machamp Diggersby core. I might switch up the Drapion if I run the team again, just so that way I have a slightly bulkier backline, so that way in more games I can more effectively rely on giving my shields to Machamp. But overall, Shadow Machamp, a very, very fun Pokemon, and as we saw in those first couple games, Machamp up energy can do a lot, even against fairy types. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.